going on? RGIJ is back, baby. Listeners and viewers, welcome to another episode of the regular G.I. Joe podcast. Me and Mike are excited today because we are joined by our guest. Not only is she a mom and a wife, but she's also an Air Force veteran. She's an ambassador to the clothing line of the Okie Lone Star Boutique. And she is also a teacher. Apart from that, she's the co-host of her brand with her husband, the Meet the Simmons, which is called Enough Said on her YouTube channel. Welcome, Chauntel Simmons. How are you?
Thank you. I'm good. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So I think it's kind of awesome. I'm going to start off with this first before we dwell on, your teaching and, Meet the Simmons and Enough Said and everything else. Mm-hmm. But I think it's kind of cool. Out of all days today, 21 years ago, the remembrance of 9/11. So I think it's kind of cool that we're joined by another veteran as yourself that was in the Air Force. So I want to ask you, where were you on 9/11? I don't think Mike was born, but where were you on 9/11?
Wow. On 9/11, I worked the night shift. I was in the Air Force at the time and I was a cook. So I wasn't scheduled to go in yet. And I remember my husband, Marcus, he called me and I was asleep and I was also pregnant with our oldest son. Wow. And he called me. He said, are you watching TV? Are you watching the news? I was like, no, I was asleep. I work late. He was like, you need to turn the TV on now. And he said, I need you to sit down. So I turned it on and I just remember it feeling like it was surreal. I didn't know what was happening. And at first I was like, this can't really be happening, but it was happening live. And I'm seeing a tower go down in New York. And then I'm starting to get calls from my supervisor and they're like, okay, we need all hands on deck. We need you to come in to work. Everybody get dressed, get in, and then we'll brief you there. So it just felt so surreal and it was so uncertain. And it's a day that I'll never forget because it was a period of time where we didn't know how things were going to change. We didn't know what our future was going to look like. And again, I'm pregnant at the time and I'm thinking, God, you have given me this blessing of a baby, but what world are we bringing this child into? Right. So that's kind of where I was on 9/11. So
where were you stationed at?
Hurlburt Field in Florida. So right by Eglin Air Force Base, Hurlburt. It's hard to say that.
Right,
but yeah,
right. In Florida. Now, was Marcus deployed or where was he at?
No, he wasn't deployed. He was actually, he worked as well. So he's a bioenvironmental technician. Right. So he was at bio. And of course, one of their main jobs is to kind of assess any, nuclear agents or any of that kind of stuff, OSHA, EPA type deal. Mm-hmm. So he's at work and he's being tasked and, they're calling him to work extra hours. So we're just trying to figure out what was going on at the time. It was crazy.
That is nuts, man. But thank you for your service. How long did you do from the Air Force? How many years were you in?
I was in 8.5 years.
Now, because you have how many kids now?
I have 3.
You have 3. So you were with the firstborn. When you transitioned out, where were you at as far as motherhood? You already had your second child or?
Yes. So I got out. So as a woman, we were able to, if you were pregnant, you could actually get out while you were either pregnant or soon thereafter you had a child. Mm-hmm. And that was what I opted to do. I had deployed because of 9/11. I was one of the first troops that was sent to Bagram Air Base in Afghanistan. So I did that and deployed and met some really amazing people that really protected us. And again, I was a cook, so I was making sure their bellies were fed. So, so I'm making the meals, and they're going out like literally. It was all hands on deck. It was the Rangers, it was the SEALs, it was everybody working together. It was the everyone that was just together trying to figure out what the heck was happening. And so I got out in 2004. So our middle son, I was actually pregnant with him, so he was soon to be born after that.
So let me retract this. And when you were deployed, just to get your perspective on it, at least from a female's perspective, how was that? Knowing that you're there in Afghanistan, combat zone, you have your kids back at home with your husband and everything else. Like, how was that? I mean, for us guys, we're the machismo, we're like, we got it, we're good. But, from a female's perspective, not because you're thinking about your kids and everything else. So how did you handle that?
It was hard. It was hard. This was back early 2000. So this is like 2000, early 2003 when I was there. So we didn't really use like Skype like that. Not really at that time, not like it is now. We didn't really like FaceTime like we do now. So being in communication with family back home was like you went to a tent and you were on a phone, and the line for the tent was long because everybody's trying to get, have that one moment of, phone call with their loved ones. Yeah, you could email, and Skype was like starting to kind of be popular, but it wasn't that popular back then. So it was real old school. Like I'm literally listening to my husband's voice, and he would send pics via email of our baby who's growing and getting taller. And it was weird. Like I started having these dreams about our baby. I would hallucinate.
Oh, wow.
I hallucinated. I was, because of some of the meds that we had, like the anthrax and all that stuff, like, it had an effect on us. And some of us were hallucinating. Well, I'm dreaming about my child. I'm thinking I'm holding my baby. I literally in my tent, you know how they had those wooden posts kind of around to build the tent up? In my dream, I'm thinking I'm holding and rocking my baby. I dislocate my finger trying to hold my baby. And in the middle of the night, I'm like, oh crap, my finger's sticking out this way. I have to run to my first sergeant's tent. I'm like, yo, help me out. He's like, oh, okay. So he's like my dad. He's like, okay, just wrap it up. Let's go. And I'm going. And there was these kids that was on duty. It was like the doctors were like asleep. And these kids didn't know what they were doing. They're like, I think we just need to just like prop it. I'm like, don't touch me. Wake the doctors up. I'll wait. Right. It was crazy. But to answer your question, it was a lot of turmoil, and it was hard. It was hard because I missed my husband. I missed my newborn baby. And it was difficult to deal with. But I will say that I'll never forget the camaraderie of the people that were there with me. They helped me through a difficult time. And I think we really were able to pull together. But it was really, really tough.
Yeah, I could imagine, because for me, that's one of the biggest things. Like even now, after it's all said and done, my commitment's up. That's the one thing that I miss is the people, the friendships you make and everything. I mean, I've been knowing Marcus for 20 something years now, So one thing, when I was deployed, I made sure my friends were the cooks. I made sure if you worked in services, I was like, you and I need to, because you took care of the gym as well.
Yep.
The morale tent and everything. So I made sure I knew at least somebody, even when it came for the line, they make sure your food was fresh and everything else was good to go.
That's right.
Now that you transition out, you did 8 years, you got out of the Air Force and everything else. How was the transitioning going from military structure? Now you're going to civilian lifestyle. Like how was that?
It was difficult because I was looking for that same family camaraderie on the outside that I had on the inside. And I didn't really find it. So it was a big transition for me to really realize what civilian life was going to be like. Whereas like I would get hired because I was a military vet, but I was looking for that family structure, and it was very, very difficult to find. I found it a few different times, but not on the level that I had when I was actually active duty with my fellow veterans. So it was difficult. And even the financial burden that you even go through as you're trying to secure a job, and you're trying to figure out what skills, because you do so much. Like for me, I was in services, so I could cook. I worked in lodging. I worked in fitness. But when you're trying to like translate all of that to a resume, they're like, so do you have a kinesiology degree? No. Okay. So have you gone to culinary school? So they're trying to figure out like where you fit. And it was hard. I definitely went through the TAPS briefings, and, I got some assistance that way, but it was a big adjustment finally trying to figure out my fit kind of here in, civilian world. So I will admit that.
So why the Air Force? Did you have family that was military? So like me, I'm the youngest of 5. So my older brothers basically started it off, but my mom was never in. My dad was never in, but they saw it as a means. Oh, we can't afford college for these kids. So they were like, you're going into the service. And, all the 4 boys just followed right through. But, why the Air Force? Did you have the same culture, lifestyle that, your parents were just like, hey, college ain't here, so we're going to put you in the military?
Yeah, so my dad was in the Air Force. He got out.
Okay, nice.
So my dad was in the Air Force. He only did 2 years. He had the option of getting out right before Vietnam. And he was like, nope, I'm getting up now. So they gave them that option, and we did.
Right.
And again, I wanted to go to college, and I kind of grew up in a pretty toxic environment, and I knew I needed to leave that environment. And being a poor Black kid from where I was from, it was like there's some ways you can leave, but not some legal ways. So I was trying, I was trying to do it the right way. Trying to do it the right way. So I was like, dang, I'm not like, I didn't get a scholarship for school, so I guess I'm gonna join the military. And I remember my dad being like, well, join a branch. You know, the Air Force was great. So that's kind of my story, because I wanted to go to college, and I needed to leave home, and I'm glad I did.
I think that's a lot. A lot of people just want to get out of the streets, depending on your upcoming. You know what I'm saying? Your upbringing really can fluctuate and make that decision for you to whether you want to stay safe, or you can easily revert back to the street lifestyle. Because don't get me wrong, there's been times in the military that I saw some kids that were still thinking they were still in the streets. And I'm just like, you do understand that you're like in a real professional environment, you know, like the wearing the jeans below the butt cheeks and all that stuff. Like you got to let that go. You know, that's not your lifestyle no more. But a lot of them couldn't grasp that. They sort of just brought the streets with them, you know? So it was crazy. So being that you transition out after it was all said and done, now you're a teacher. Yes. Did that take some time for you to get into the teaching field? You always wanted to be an educator. Did you see that field in your vision of your life as you were transitioning out and everything else? Or did you do some other side gigs before you went into teaching? And what grade are you teaching?
I teach kindergarten.
Okay.
Bunch of 5 and 6-year-olds every day who need something from me daily, several times a day.
All right. How did you transition to that? Like, but why teaching though? How'd you get into teaching?
I wanted to be an educator since I was a little girl. I just didn't think I was smart enough to do it. So it took me a while to actually build up the courage to go to college. It took me. So it's funny. I joined the Air Force to go to college, but I didn't get my degree while I was at the Union. I didn't do it. I was working and being a career woman, and, you know, I'm going to be a lifer. It's okay. No. And then I got out 8.5 years after deploying. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm never leaving my kids again. I can't do it. And then I don't have a degree. So then I have to go to school and start working and getting my degree. So I did that. But, I always wanted to be an educator. And again, I didn't think I could do it. And once I got my degree in 2012, I was like, I don't know if I want to do that. I got out of the military, and the finance was what grabbed me. So I was a banker. I was a personal banker for several years. They're like, you're a veteran. Yeah, we'll take you. Okay. And I loved it. And I started growing in that field. But then when it stopped being about the customer and more about the sales, I was like, that's kind of where I kind of took my bow out of that. Then I became an insurance agent. I was like, okay, yes, I'll sell insurance. Again, you've got to meet your quotas and sell so many products, and it's not really about the customer as much as they tell you it is. So I was like, this isn't really my thing. And so I got my degree, and I kept thinking, well, I'll homeschool our kids. That's being a teacher. And yeah, it is. It was great. I cut my teeth doing that because I was able to kind of see what was good and what wasn't. And I learned a lot. I became a part of a co-op, and I was a director of a group of families that we met once a week. And then it was to the point where our kids were a little socially awkward. We had to send them jokers back to school. Yeah, y'all a little weird, so we send y'all back. You're only with me. So you're going to school. So we did that. And then it was like, well, dang, Chauntel, what are you going to do? Why don't you try this teacher thing? And that's what I did. I became a part of this program where you get your work on your certification, and I started teaching. So I kind of stumbled into it, but it was something that I always wanted to do. I just didn't have the confidence early on.
Now, is kindergarten the grade you chose, or can you teach any level of school, or you decided, hey, I'm going to stick with kindergarten?
I can teach any grade K through 6, so kinder through 6th grade. Okay. But kindergarten is a perfect fit for me. I've only ever taught like first. They kind of threw me in kinder, like, well, we need somebody because we can't never find nobody in kinder, so we need you to stay there. So then I taught 1st grade, but kinder is that sweet spot for me. I really love that age. I'm a tough mama. I'm very tough on my kids. Like I always tell them my standard is here, so you got to get there. And the only way you're going to get there, I'm going to build you some stairs, but you're going to get there. If I tell you to sit in that chair, you're going to sit in that chair. Tantrums, it don't move me. Tears,
Right.
here's some tissue, baby. You good? I need you to sit in that chair because you still got to do my work.
Right.
Like, I'm tough, and they know it, but they also know that I love them to pieces. And I'm so grateful in this climate because with everything that goes on in schools, I think a lot of my military training really comes into play because like we're training now for active shooters. We're training now for what do you do if a threat happens on campus, and how do you secure your perimeter? How do you secure your room? I'm like, oh yeah, I know exactly what I'm going to do.
Right.
And I've got different like barricades and things built because, and people are coming to me like, why'd you do that? Because that's how I've been trained to think that way.
Correct.
Because if somebody's coming through my door, it's going to be some slow singing and some flower bringing, like, it's no time. So that's kind of, I know that military training really helped me because it helps me to kind of see how to protect those babies because I know I'm willing to risk my life for each and every one of my students. So.
Yeah, and that's cool because that's one other question I was going to ask you, especially now with the way the news have been portraying with these active school shootings and everything else. I mean, the last one that just happened, to me, I felt like, even though they're all bad, to me, I felt like that was the most devastating one just because of the age of the kids. You know, they were so much younger to what normally these active shooters were targeting at. So, and it's great that you are taking your military wisdom and knowledge and putting it into effect into a set environment that there is a case that an active shooter could happen again. So does that, when you leave the house and you go into the school, is that like your mind switches to military? Like you're like, I need to be observant. I need to know who's here, who's there, like what's going on. So how do you prepare yourself for that? Like, God forbid if that was to ever happen. I know you say you guys do the training now, but is your mindset always that way when you go into the school?
Now it is. The shooting that happened at Buff Elementary, it was 80 miles from where I am. 80.
Oh, wow.
And it happened during the same week that we were doing our end of year awards. And what really crushed me, and I mean, I'm bawling. This is the last week of school for us. So we're doing all of our end of year awards. We just did our little kinder graduation with their little cap and gown. It was so adorable. And literally we have to host like this town hall meeting and telling these babies that another group of babies their age, not much older than them, just got killed.
All right.
I'm going to try not to cry. I always do every time I talk about it. And so ever since then, because when we saw the pictures, some of them were holding their little awards, and I kept seeing my students. I kept seeing my babies in my classroom. And so every day I literally made that commitment, that promise. Every day I'm vigilant. Every day I'm looking. Every day I'm asking questions. Every day my doors are locked. Every day I'm making sure that if I don't know who you are, I don't know why you're trying to come this way. Door closed, boom. That is my mindset now, because that was a tragedy that should have never happened. It just should have never happened. And yet it did. And it happened at the most horrible time. It was at the end of the year. They made it through that whole year. And then something like that happens. So, yeah, to answer your question, every day I'm thinking that way.
So did the school take measures beforehand, before that incident ever happened, just based on prior active shooter incidents? Your school already had preparations of exercises going on. We're going to do drills. We're going to do anything to that matter? Or are they just like, hey, let's hire more security? Like, what preventative measures is your school doing now?
I think in general, schools were really a lot more lax, because even though tragedies have been happening like that for years, this isn't something brand new, but it's almost like we were just like, oh, it's a one-off. It's not really going to happen. But we live in very uncertain times. And if the pandemic hasn't shown us anything else, it has revealed to us that people are emotionally and socially unstable. And a lot of our kids are coming from those environments. And it's not a game and it's not a joke. So we have to take this very seriously. Some of the measures that we're doing now were some of the doors that used to remain unlocked are now locked all day long. Entrances and exits that used to be multiple is now one. There's one way in, one way out. Gates that used to be open to come into our campus are now secured and locked. There's even new passcodes to certain areas of the building that if you don't have access, you don't get to go there. Doesn't matter if you're, a vendor that's coming to fix our AC unit. You got to go through the office and someone has to escort you. So things that we didn't do before, we're doing those things now. And definitely it's harder for parents to even come on campus. You've got to go through extensive background checks. And if you don't have your, oh, I forgot my ID. Well, I'm sorry, you're going to have to go and get it. You don't get to come on campus until we verify who you truly are. So those are some of those measures that I think we've implemented and we're actively monitoring.
Right.
And even asking for more volunteers. I would say this for every, if you're watching this, for any parent, if you're able to volunteer on school campuses and they allow it, just having more parental presence is a big help too. Just walking the perimeter, just having parents that can walk during playground time or while we're in school, like having parents that clear the background check, but can actually walk the campuses would actually be a big help, because our police can only do so much. Our security can only do so much. There's only so many of them. So it's a community effort. It's going to take a village for us to pull together to do that.
Now, have you noticed if more of the employment of being an educator, has it like brought in more veterans? Have you seen that? Because I read something now that now they're looking for veterans to sort of become teachers. Like they want them to be in that field. I don't know if it's because of active shooter incidents or whatnot, or maybe because we bring that mindset of be alert, be vigilant, and everything else. Have you seen a transition of more veterans becoming educators? Or do you have any veterans with you in your school that also are veterans teaching as well?
There's a few more. Yeah.
Okay.
There's a few more that's with me. But right now, education is suffering mightily. I read an article literally this morning, Texas Tribune. The percentage is 77% of educators are saying by the end of this 2022-2023 school year, they probably will not return.
Wow.
So I don't know how that will affect drawing more veterans to actually come and be a part of this field of, or this career path. But there are so many teachers that are like, I'm good. I'm walking away. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot to the job. It's a lot.
Yeah. Well, one thing, I remember back in the day, I signed up for Troops to Teachers. I remember I was thinking about getting out, and they came in, they're like, hey, we want, and this is before 07. That's when I was in Ellsworth, and I signed up for Troops to Teachers because it was like, hey, I mean, the whole reason why I thought about wanting to become a teacher or anything like that is because I wouldn't be in the Air Force if it wasn't for, my teacher, who I literally failed English. Like I literally failed.
Oh, wow.
And she brought me over and was like, hey, you see this? And I was like, she knew I was going to the military. So it was like, your head's hung down. You're like, dang. She got her pencil and she erased it and she put a 70, said, good luck. And that's like impactful, right? Like that's amazing. Like she shouldn't have done that. Wow. But without that, I did, because I graduated on a Saturday and Monday I left for boot camp. So I couldn't make up, and she knew it too. So, she knew I couldn't make up for summer school. Like this was it. And so it's like, man, like without that, right? Like without that impact, we don't have any of this. Cause it's I think those are things that people forget. Like, hey man, like you have that big of an impact. Cause I will remember her for the rest of my life. I've looked her up several times because it's just like, hey, thank you. Like without that pencil, without you just sitting there saying like, it's wrong, but she was just like, hey, good luck. That doesn't happen, right? Anything my whole life, like my kids are half Japanese. That definitely doesn't happen. I don't get to go to Japan. But yeah, I signed up for Troops to Teachers, and that's what a lot of things they were talking about. They wanted a lot of mainly male military guys, just for that aspect. And what's funny is we went to a homecoming game this past Friday, right? So in Texas, homecoming games are big, right?
Yes.
And man, and so you go there, man. I do not like those kids, man. I was like, I was so aggravated, man. These kids are like, they're annoying. They, so like we're standing in line, right, for concession stand. We're buying, candy and drinks for the kids or whatever. And so like we're in line. You have adults, you have kids in line, and these kids just come in and make their own line, and you're just like, man, like I don't know you. And so I was talking to my daughter. We're getting our order ready, and these girls just cut in front of us. And so I was like, no, ma'am. And the other girl looked at me and was like, oh, what? And I was like, no, ma'am, this young lady cut in front of me. No. And so like they moved, but it was just like that thing of like, I don't know you. And the first thing out of my mouth, like where I'm thinking out loud is like, who's your dad? Let me go fight him. I want to fight your dad because like, it's just,
What's your daddy?
yeah, like, I can't do nothing to you kids. But it's crazy how like that's the attitude that we have perceived, right, of kids. And that's why I think a lot of people do not want to be teachers. And so I think it's like maybe kids are like that, but at the same time frame, because that's our only interaction with those kids, man, some people are like, I don't want to be an educator. And then some people that are educators, and you're like, I know some people that are, and it's like, you don't even know how to budget, and you're teaching, high school kids. I'm concerned at this moment, because if you can barely function in life, you're responsible has to be through the roof. So with those things, like, man, like, hey, you already feel that sense of responsibility, but as you're getting like older in life and you're seeing these things, do you see more of like, man, A, being educators endangered in a sense, or B, like, man, our responsibility is going through the roof because we really have, like, from kindergarten, like you were saying, in kindergarten, these kids are learning, like, hey, sit down, do this stuff. And you start noticing really fast, they're not getting it at home. So what do you think about like how you see everything going through the rest of the like K through 12?
That's a great question. I'll be honest. I think the way we're doing education now isn't really working. The way we're doing it, the whole system, kids are in school a really long time. And we're pushing a lot of content down their throats, and we're expecting them to accomplish a lot. Then we send a bunch of homework home, and then we're asking you parents to become teachers and to help them with their homework. Now, I didn't taught them the new fancy math where you just touch the dot and you close your eyes and spin around 5 times, and that's how you do your math. You don't know that. You learn the old school way. But you're the teacher now because I want that homework packet because I'm going to grade it. And if he don't have his homework, Johnny don't have his homework. Johnny about to get an F in my class, and then Johnny going to be crying. I got to deal with all that. I don't want to do all that. Right. So there's all of that that's happening. So I would say we need to revamp the way we're doing education. I love that a lot of districts are actually going to 4 days a week, which I think is great. I think that we should open up and have more time for kids to explore, to read books, to do things with their families, to be kids. I think that would really change the dynamic of how we're educating our students. And yes, we want to make sure that they pass the STAR, whatever test it is. But my God, are we preparing them to be entrepreneurs? Are we preparing them for life? Are we helping them with character? Are we helping them with their creative side and teaching them how to write? I mean, old school, how you write a check? Like, if I'm a millionaire, I want me a check. How you write that bad boy? Like, are we teaching that? Kids don't even know how to do cursive anymore. Like, you got to sign your name somewhere. They don't even know how to do that because it's not mandatory, really. It's like, So to answer your question, I think we really need to revamp how we're educating our students, period. You're right, though. It's hard to get a person to say, okay, yes, I want to be a teacher. Yes, I want to make a difference. But that teacher only has a certain amount of time. And you are asking them to do 100 tasks a day, but I'm only going to give you an hour to get this done, maybe 2-3 hours a week. So if I don't, as the school district, give you that time, where's that time coming from? That's coming from my personal life. I'm staying after school. I'm coming in early. I'm working on weekends, and y'all ain't trying to pay nobody. So it's hard to find a group of people that are willing to say, yes, I'll do that. And we're pretending, our society is pretending, Governor Abbott and everyone else, I know after COVID it was tough. Teachers will come back. Nah, player, you got to pay us. Yeah. Like, you got to pay us. You got to make it worth our while because we're human beings too. And now you're asking me to risk my health, my mental well-being, and my family to teach other kids. And yes, it's amazing. It's a call, but it's hard. And you got to weigh, is the sacrifice really worth it? So I think that's kind of where educators are now. I hope I didn't go too far off on a tangent and I answered your question.
No, it's okay. We got pulled from YouTube for this one, probably. Like, it got like political slander. Not just playing. Nah, you're fine. Like, but I mean, those are real things, though. You know what I mean? Like, those are some concerns, right? Like, anybody who gets into industry, like, we have this thing now with education where we automatically think if you have a degree, you're going to make money. And we've been finding out hand over fist for years now, a degree, a master's degree, I knew I was taking, when I was in the Air Force, I was taking college, and I had an actual professor that was a English doctorate, right? She had her doctorates. And she sat there and said, hey, I'm going to die poor, so I'm staying in school as long as I can because I don't have to pay. Because she knew she couldn't afford to pay her student loans. So her, as a professor, as a doctorate professor, her concept was, I'm going to stay in school as long as I can to get more degrees so I don't have to pay this because I can't afford it. And so it was like kind of that logic of like, but you have a doctorate. And this is the best kind of like, this is what the best you can come up with is just, I'll just stay in debt and die in debt. Like I'm okay. Like, and it wasn't like, man, I'm going to die in debt. And like, I'm bummer. Like that was 10 years ago. I accepted that call, you know what I mean? So I think that's like a bigger issue that we have going on too, is like, you know, we automatically think, and this is not going to like say, hey, teachers are wrong for this one. It's just that we have this idea that like, man, having an education makes you more valuable. And what we're finding out now is like, you know what I mean? Like, no, actually some people really don't think that is something right or wrong. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying like, we're finding that out. And I think, you know, it's like kind of anything else, man. You start like Izzy and I were talking about before this about real estate, right? So I'm in real estate and how it's like portrayed, sunny and this and that, and it's not, right? And I think that's what everyone thought on TV. You know, you got Feeney from Boy Meets World, like that's what you think life is, right? Like you're impactful, you're doing this, and you know, you might be breaking up fights. You could literally be getting hurt by somebody that's a 15, 16-year-old. And I think that's where our conception of what really education is like, we really take a hard look at it and sit there and say like, how valuable is it? Because I know this one person, they got recruited, a school recruited them to come and work for them. And she was like, I wasn't even calling. I wasn't even looking for a job. That is scary to me, that there might be teachers who didn't even think about becoming teachers and do it because like, I know another person, the reason why they became a teacher was so they could have summers off.
Right.
Like, you know, it's a regular job. Like, you know, they're getting drunk. They're like going into work and be like, I guess I was sick today. You know, they're regular people. And I think we have this idea, like they're Mr. Feeney. They're just so, knowledgeable in these things. And that's one crazy. I want to kind of shift a little bit though. What do people do when they find out about you writing books, about being an author and stuff like that? What do they think about that? Or do they even know?
It's mixed responses. Some people are like, oh man, that's really cool. Where can I find your book? You tell them and they're like, okay, cool. Some people are like, oh, wow, you're an author. Oh, you're an author. I don't know. I think sometimes people don't really know how to take you because they have this idea of what that means. It's just, I'm just the person that wrote a book about my story, and I wrote a children's book, and that's pretty much it. I've had some speaking engagements from it, but for the most part, people are like, oh man, that's really cool. How can I support? My school this year asked me to be a speaker. So I had to speak to all 300 staff members, and I did like an excerpt from my book, and they were like, oh my gosh, this is great. You should write it down. I was like, I already did. It's in my book. Want to buy it? Like, where do you get it? Yeah. So I don't think people really realize how hard it is. And they'll say like, I'll get it, I'll buy it. But then when it comes time to really supporting, it's like crickets a little bit. Because to be honest, a lot of people don't really like to read as much anymore. Everything has to be condensed. And I think another avenue that's really amazing is audiobooks. So if you are not a great reader or you just don't like reading, you can always listen to it. But yeah, I just think that people don't have the time really, or don't make the time or prioritize reading as much as they used to. Mm-hmm. So mixed reviews on whether they want to purchase or not. And they're just like, oh, that was really cool that you wrote a book. That's kind of it.
Yeah. No, but that's kind of shifting towards more entrepreneurship. Because I what I hear from your story when you got out of the military, which mine is, and kind of in a sense, Izzy's in a sense, is we kind of just like we do the military. It don't matter if you do 4, 6, 8, whatever. It seems like you do 20, man. You're kind of just it's like you're navigating the waters and you're trying to figure out what is that. Because I remember getting out and I remember bragging to people like, man, you're CBT. I'll never have to do that again. Like, oh, suckers. Y'all live in the lie. Like, you're doing this stuff. I'm about to go on my own. And I literally got a job and they're like, hey, before you can do anything, we need you like to take this training. And it's like, it's on computer. Like, CBT, you want me to do a CBT. It's like, you don't leave that. Like, even now, like I was telling Izzy, like my license is coming up, so I have to renew it. That's more CBTs. I have to do education. It's like, it's like like you thought the military was goofy because it's just doing dumb stuff. And you're like, but you find out and you're like, that's the greatest lie there ever was. Like the whole world is goofy and the military just like, you're going to keep doing it. So, and what you talked about mainly was the entrepreneurship. That's something that I don't think people ever talk about. Like people sit there and say, hey, I love you. I support you. I do this. And then you look it up and be like, I don't got no sales coming in. Like, it's like, but it is what it is though. Like at the end of the day, like, you know, you have a business, I have a business, like not everyone's going to, and it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just, we think, and what I found the funniest part about it is a lot of people that you think would support you. Like, hey, I'm waiting on it. When it drops, I'm hitting that buy button. They never do. They just never do. And the people that are total strangers will support you more than ever. So if you can talk about what it's like to be an entrepreneur, what it's like to be an author, trying to sell yourself, but at the same time frame, like how the difficulties or maybe some of the truth behind it.
Man, you just said a whole mouthful. I'm trying to tell you what you just said is so I agree wholeheartedly with, because I think that was the biggest shock. The people that I thought were really going to support, whether they were saying it, whether they're family, whether they're long-term friends, whatever it was, those people weren't really the ones that actually went out to buy the book. Those weren't the people that actually showed up to the book signing. Those weren't the people that were like, man, oh, okay, so y'all are life coaches. Cool. How can I support you? Like, no, those weren't the people. It was like the people I've never met ever, like total complete strangers, or those that I had very little interaction with. Those are the ones that actually have been showing up or really supporting. I think one of the biggest lessons that I learned is not to take it personal, though. Like not to take any of that personal. People are going to people. People have different things going on. It's not anything that I need to take personal. It doesn't stop me from grinding. It doesn't stop me and my husband from working hard. It doesn't stop us from being legacy minded and wanting to leave something behind for our children's children. The grind, it motivates us. Like, okay, cool. You don't want support? Don't get mad when this train start moving. Because I'm going to keep grinding. I'm going to keep building. I'm going to keep doing whatever it is I need to do. So I think the lesson was you're going to really be surprised who actually shows up to support you. And it's not going to look like what you think it's going to look like. It's not going to sound, feel, any of that. It's going to be completely different. I'll be honest. Izzy and Mike, y'all are showing us more love than people I've known for years. Like, you asked us to be an ambassador of your brand. Who does that? Like, y'all are brothers. Y'all don't know yet. Like, we just got to do a cookout or something. Like, y'all are family. That's how me and Marcus see y'all. Like, y'all are showing us love that hasn't been shown to us from other entities, other organizations, other people. And one thing about it is, like you said, it doesn't matter if you were in the Air Force for your 6 months to be qualified, 180 days to be qualified as a veteran, or whether you were a lifer. Like, once you're a part of this community, your family, like you build something with a group of people that y'all go through something with together, risking your lives, whether you knew it or not. And you become like this family, this extended family around the world. So I would say, in a nutshell, you'll be surprised who actually shows up to support you, and it's going to be okay. And that's a testing ground, a proving ground for your character, because if you're looking for the accolades, if you're looking for the likes, if you're looking for the, oh man, you're great, you're awesome, then you're in it for the wrong reason anyway. It's about when it's silent, I'm still going to be silently grinding. When no one's saying anything, I'm still going to push through and persevere. When I fail, I'm still going to pick back up and do it again. It really shows you who you are, and embrace those moments because they happen.
You know, it's crazy that you say that.
I definitely.
I was going to say, you know, it's crazy that you say that, because one, even though I don't have no kids, but if I had kids, I would want them to be in a setting where their teacher's mindset is like that. You know, that you're coming in and you're also trying to portray to these children, because at kindergarten, you know, you can mold them still, you know, they're still being able to be molded. You teach them and everything else. And, you know, at times it kind of sucks that parents sort of use the teachers as scapegoats just to drop the kids off and say, hey, you know, do what I can't be doing at home. You know what I'm saying? But the fact that you're still doing it, and it's discouraging that your profession ain't seen its worth. They don't really see its value and its worth, because I've had teachers unto this day, Chauntel, I'm friends with my 3rd grade teacher and I'm friends with my 6th grade teacher.
Cool.
I'm 43 years old and I'm
cool.
still friends with, because that was the impact that they had on my life. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
So you do get some teachers that just do it for their selfish reasons. You do. I'm not going to deny that.
Yeah.
It's out there, it's open, but you also have those that are really passionate, like yourself, that are coming with the mindset to be like, I want to make sure that these kids have better, because at the end of the day, all three of us, we're revolving doors. We got to make sure that everything's going to be set up for those following behind us. Your kids, Mike's daughters, you know what I'm saying? My nieces and nephews, we got to make sure that when we, God forbid the day comes that we're no longer on this earth, that they're able to still get up, they're able to push, persevere, and everything else. You know what I'm saying? Because we're not with them 24/7. So at the end of the day, you're hoping that the education system is going to be there for them, to give them the learning, you know, to teach them morals, to teach them values, because educating is not just about the chalkboard and do 2 + 2 = what. Educating is on and off duty, just like how you were supervised, on and off duty. You want to make sure that your airman was taken care of all the time, whether he was at work or whether he was at home. You wanted to make sure that everything was good to go, and you taking that into these kids. And I give you your flowers for that, because I know teaching, especially that the videos that I see where kids are fighting with their teachers, you know, kids are very disrespectful with their teachers. You know, I commend you for that, because it is a hard thing to do, especially, you know, 5, 6-year-olds, where it's the tantrums and everything else, but you still push through it and everything. And it's good that you have a good house support where you go home and, you know, Marcus is there to listen to you, and, you know, you have your kids there, you see what your kids go through to school and everything else. So it's awesome. But I do like the fact that you said you're legacy minded, especially with your books and everything else, because I feel like as a parent, you have to be that way. You have to have something left back for your children to sort of fall back on, because tomorrow's not guaranteed. Tomorrow may not happen. And then what are your kids going to do? I know some kids right now that are calling back home to their parents to say, hey, how do I do a load in the laundry? How do I iron my shirts and my pants? You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, they're just not used to that mentality. You know what I'm saying? But I do want to segue with what you said, life coach, which brings me to the Meet the Simmons brand. So how did that come about? How did you, it's because Meet the Simmons and even Enough Said, your YouTube channel, you and Marcus came up with this, and I know you guys deal with a lot, which is awesome. Your content deals with a lot of marital relationships, you know, men, women, you know, vices, how men should treat women, how women should treat men, so on and so forth. So give us, you know, what Meet the Simmons is, how did the brand come about, and then tell us about Enough Said, your YouTube channel. Like, how did that come about as well?
The brand Meet the Simmons, we just started off on social media. We had like our IG page and then even our Facebook page, and we started doing Facebook Lives. So at our church, we were over the marriage ministry. And what we wanted to kind of do was, there was a lot of people that weren't able to go, or even people that didn't go to our church or didn't even go to church. We didn't care. But we wanted to be able to talk about real issues that happen in marriage and start to reach a broader audience. So that's where the Facebook Lives kind of came into play. And then we did like some IG Lives as well. And then we had a few people, they were like, man, y'all just need to go to YouTube. We're like, YouTube? Ugh, we don't want to do it, YouTube. It took us forever to really build up the confidence. The Facebook Lives and the IG really helped us kind of build a little confidence, because when you live, like, it's, hey, go. There's no cutting, no editing, none of that. You're just like live. And so that helped us to kind of build up the courage. And then we were like, we'll think about YouTube. We'll think about it. And then this one gentleman, I think his name is Mike Mendez. He kind of was like, y'all just need to hurry up and go on and just put it out there. Like, what are y'all waiting on? We're like, who's this dude and why is he telling us this? So, Mike, you did it. So we I'm
really happy with that, by the way. That's cool.
I am too.
We started recording, and, you know, people started responding, and we're like, okay, maybe YouTube might be a little, you know, it might be a little fit for us. And then even Mike kind of gave us some pointers on, can you make y'all shot a little tighter? You're a little far away. Like, so we
get
took
up
your
close.
pointers, and it was a few people that kind of were like, you know, kind of tweak it, do it like this. And we did that. And we have a blast doing it, building the content. The idea behind the content is to draw people to the life coaching business, because we want to really help people heal, because there's a lot of hurting people hurting other people. And we want to really stop some of the hemorrhaging that's happening. And a lot of it is happening in my community. And that's a big, and you'll hear us talk about it a lot. We're so passionate about it because 80% in the Black community, 80% of our women are single parents. And these single parent-led homes are not producing really great results. There's a lot of babies that are hurting from it. I came from that environment. I know what it looks like. I know what it feels like. So we want to stop that as much as we can, or at least try to help as much as we can. So that's kind of where all that Meet the Simmons comes from.
So talk to us
really
a little.
Dope. Go ahead,
Mike.
Go
ahead, Mike.
I'll just say what I really like about the concept on YouTube and Meet the Simmons. One is some of your sayings, like punch in the air, like that stuff's hilarious. It just, because it's like, and that's what I like about YouTube is like we can get to meet the authenticity. Because there's a couple moments where you will say something really fast, and it's like we get to meet the person behind it. And that's what I like about what y'all's content is. It's like, yeah, I want to take, let's say I can always use marriage advice, but if someone's like, you meet them, you're like, I don't think you're happy, man. Like, I don't want to listen to that stuff, right? Like, and also too, like, if I'm trying to learn something and you're talking about like, hey, like this is how you should treat your wife or how she looks at things, that's one thing. But if you're like, give me into a way that I can like, hey, have a good time listening to it and then kind of share her. So maybe she can hear that point of view or like we can talk about it. And that's what we'll do sometimes. I'll be like, hey, here, listen to this one. Hey, this and that. She'll be like, oh, and we'll have a conversation. And it may not even be for our marriage. It might be her friend or something like that. And it's kind of that concept where it's like, that this is why this needs to exist, right? Like, I mean, Izzy and I have got made fun of, and people on comments will make fun of us and da-da-da. Like, at the end of the day, it's like, there's 8 billion people like on this world. You don't think 200 of them are going to like listen to your stuff? Like, it's just, it's just like crazy to me. And that's why I like y'all stuff is because like, A, y'all talking about different concepts that need to be talked about. And then 2, it's like, if someone is talking about it, sometimes they're so professional. It's like, man, like, I don't get to meet the real you. It's almost like those movies where you're like, man, are you kind of one of those people who says cut and then you're cussing everybody out, but like you're all this person on camera? You know what I mean? Because that is a reality of our world where like we don't know people. And that's why I like what y'all's talking about. And, it's like, hey, just go ahead and do it. And my whole point of view from everything that I've learned from the military is just hit the ground running. We'll be flexible. We need to go left, we'll go left. We go right. Cool. But at least we're making action. And that's why I think that's the hardest thing for people to understand is like, you're going to make mistakes. Nobody really cares that much like you think. Just do it. And if there's a mistake, you'll fix it. And there'll be some people that will sit there and say, hey, look, if I like, here's a little bit of advice, here's that, take it, love it, and then move forward. Somebody makes fun of you. Like if somebody's like, hey, do you know, like we can't even hear Izzy and they're making fun of us. Instead of like getting mad, be like, no, thank you. Like that's free consultation in a sense. Like you might be a hater, but it's free. Cool. We'll up his volume up on the next level. We're recording it, or hey, here's this going on. And so I think that's really what people don't understand sometimes is like, man, like you're gonna do something. People, and what this is what I would love to hear your advice or your thoughts on. What are your thoughts on? You're gonna put out a video and it's scary. You get two views, or you get 3 views, or you get like 0 for like a couple of days. What is your like? How would you like to talk about that, or like what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, because that's happened several times. So I think it's taught us early on to not get addicted to the views or the likes and to stay big picture focused. And the big picture is to help one individual or a couple or someone to kind of change their mindset. It's just about a dialogue and a conversation. That's all this is. So if I can get one woman, one man to kind of be like, oh, I never thought of it or saw it that way. Or Marcus can get one woman or one man to go, oh man, bet. Okay, that's cool. We could maybe even implement that in our marriage. Then we won. So you can't get so fixated on the views or the thumbs up or man, did they share it? Or man, did they, are they following? Are they a subscriber? Like you can't get so fixated on that because people are going to kind of date you in YouTube. I'm noticing like, they're going to be like, I don't know if you're a cheap date. I don't know if you're going to buy my dinner. I don't know what you're going to do. I got to kind of see what y'all are about. So while they're kind of dating us to see what we're about, it's our job to be consistent. It's our job to keep producing content. So again, the grind doesn't stop. We keep producing. And then you as a viewer get to go, I like that. Or I'm learning, or I'm growing. I don't even like them, but they making me feel some type of way. Subscribe. We've had people say that, like, I don't really like y'all. Like there was one person that said, look like y'all are an employer-employee relationship. For that sub.
Right.
Appreciate you. And another thing that we've learned, not everybody's going to get a response. Not everybody's going to get a response. If you are a troll and you're trying to just, I'm going to be a keyboard gangster. No one like you is face to face because I'm a little hood. She's still in there. If you're in my face, I'm going to take these earrings off and I guarantee I'm swinging at something. So that's just how I think. I know. That's just how I am. But, and my husband, he crazy too. So you're a keyboard gangster, you typing all this up, but if we were face to face, you wouldn't have that conversation. So not everyone is going to get the dignity of my response. Sometimes you're going to get that straight mute from us because that was a characterless statement and I don't have to dignify that. So we're learning, kind of pick your battles. And then some of it is like, well, you're going to get a little bit of his work because that was just really rude. Send. So that's what we've heard so far.
I'll tell you this. First off, I love the title, Enough Said, because it literally is you guys just giving your points and enough is enough. You can't be doing this. Don't be doing that. You guys, I love the dynamic because you guys are real people. You're not celebrities. Yeah. You're not doing it for the fame. You're not doing it for anything like that. Like you said, there's a lot of hemorrhaging going on that you guys are trying to put some resolution to it. And hopefully people can grasp to it and get something out of your episodes, your what you're trying to relay and convey to everybody, the meaning of what you're trying to say and everything else. So I love the dynamic that you guys are just two honest people, you're in a relationship. So you might have had obstacles, you're coming from experience, you're just speaking honest, you don't beat around the bush. And I love it. So the title itself is awesome that it is enough said. Like, we're just going to get on this and let it be. And especially now that you're doing the reaction videos, I love those. The reaction videos are the best. You guys just watch it and harp on it and everything else and make your point across and then just leave it out there for the world to just, whether you like it or not, like you said, subscribe or don't subscribe. There's been times me and Mike would do, like, we've started noticing like our motivational episodes. people don't want to hear it. They're just like, yeah, who are these guys that they really that they're talking about stuff like that? So being enough said, I'm going to put you on the hot seat right now. Okay. So I'm going to ask some questions here. Again, relationship questions and everything else. And just from a woman's perspective, just give me your honest response about it, your honest opinion, whatever it is. Okay. So I think I got like around 8 questions here.
Oh, man.
First one.
Okay.
I did my homework because I was like, oh, I'm getting her here. I already know what Marcus would say. I was like, I need to bring the woman who wears the pants in the house on the show and let me get her real thoughts on it.
Oh, that's funny.
Here's number 1. What is the deal with prenuptial agreements? Why do women look at it? They hate the word. They look at it like it's evil. Why is that? Why, when men say, hey, if we're in an engagement, we're going to go into a marriage, but I would like for a prenup to be signed. Why do women look at that as something that's a mistrust or it's bad? Why is that? Or do you even think women see it that way?
I do. I think a lot. So are you speaking about the man being like a high value or high earner and the woman is not in this situation?
Correct.
Yeah. Well, I think we see it as, because we're so emotionally driven, I think what women are feeling is that you don't trust us. You don't trust me?
Yeah.
And it's hard to kind of step out and have the relationship on that footing if we're feeling like you already don't trust us. But that's the emotional side of it. But logic is going to tell you on the other side of it, the risk that the high valued, high earner person is actually taking by, coming into this union of marriage is a lot. And yes, trust is important. And yes, you need to make sure that you have the trust of both partners in it. I see the man's side of it. As a man, if I'm a high valued, high earner, I'm gonna have a prenup and I want you to sign it. And if you're having such a big issue about signing it because you're afraid that I don't trust you, then I think that's a red flag for me as the man, because I'm looking like, well, what's the big deal? Aren't we going to be together until death do us part anyway? So are you already trying to get into this relationship with an exit clause or an exit strategy? Are you getting with me because of my earnings and my money? So to me, for the man, that is a red flag, in my opinion. And as a woman, let's say Marcus was a millionaire and he's like, can you sign this? Where you want me to sign, boo? Because if I'm getting in this marriage, I'm marrying you because I love you. I'm marrying you because I want to build a life with you. And if we're really going to be together, then I'm not really so moved by the prenuptial. I'll bring what I got in, but it's not really about that for me. That's just my opinion.
Yep. That's good. That's what I wanted to hear. One for the men. Let's go. Now, here's my second question. Why do women get offended when a man talks about having separate bank accounts? Do women need a joint account, or do you think it's okay that women should be okay? You have an account, I have an account. What are your thoughts on that?
I understand. So I'm going back to my personal banking days. I understand people having separate accounts. I do. Sometimes people aren't good money managers collectively, and it may make more sense for the husband to have one account, the wife to have another account. Right. What I don't think is a good idea is that you're not, in other words, y'all would need to, in my opinion, need to have at least like a business meeting, and you're opening up the books, so to speak. This is what's in my account. This is what's in your account. We're trying to budget, grow, build here. I don't think it should be the type of situation where if like, Izzy, let's say you've got your bank account, and your wife has her own bank account, and neither one of y'all, the two, don't talk, and you never know what's in each other's account. I think there's a problem because now this is like taboo, and now we've got secrets. So if we're trying to have this open, honest communication throughout our relationship, yeah, I may have an account, you may have an account, but I at least need to know what's going on, and you need to know what's going on in my account so that we can be on the same page. Personally, Marcus and I have a joint account, and then we also have separate accounts, but we all know what's going on. And we have regular business meetings, so we know we're trying to build legacy together. So we're constantly in communication about it. Anything, password, and that's to everything. Social media, email. He's got all my access. I've got all his. I think when you're an open, honest person, you have nothing to hide. People who hide nothing have nothing to hide. So that's kind of our take on it.
I see your point on that. 'Cause like you said, I know some people that have a joint account, even though they do have separate account, but they'll put certain deposit in there, but they'll understand, both the couples would know, like, hey, the joint account is going to be used for such matters or whatever the case may be. So my next question, do you think there is something wrong for men to want women to pay half? So let's say you and I go out to dinner, the check comes. Do you think it's wrong that if the man looks at her to be like, hey, can you come out of wallet too, or at least make an attempt to come out of wallet to say, hey, I'll help pay, or I got this, boo, whatever the case would be? Because sometimes there are women that just think, I know chivalry isn't dead, but sometimes women just be like, he got it, and when that check comes, they're just looking at the check and the man's like, okay. Do you think, I don't think there's anything wrong with a woman being like, hey, you need help with that or whatever, but what are your thoughts on that? With a man wanting a woman to pay half, do you think that's bad?
I'm not really going to say that's bad or good. I think that is an opportunity for communication. Y'all need to talk about that so that it's weird. Dating is different now. I'm a very, very traditional woman. I am just an old school, I'm older, but I'm also an old school traditional woman. So I like the chivalry. I like if I'm dating, if I'm going out on a date, I would like the gentleman to pay. That's me. There's a lot of modern women that don't agree with that at all. They want to either go halvesies, or there are some women that would, would like the guy to pay. But I think that's where y'all would talk about it. So if you're asking me out, if I'm agreeing to the date, then part of that conversation is, so when it comes time to pay, do you want me to pay half, or are you more traditional? Like, what is your idea on that? That's a learning opportunity for you and that person that you're dating. But I think that's something that needs to be communicated and talked about. So I won't say this bad or good. It just needs to be discussed. I don't want to be out on the day like, oh man, I had a great time. Like, girl, where your money? Ugh, what? Like, I would like to know. We're going to talk about it. So that way I know.
That's when I excuse myself to go use the bathroom when the check comes.
I'll be right back.
Let me ask you this, my next question. when is it that the mom should cut the umbilical cord for her kids? When do you think, like, is there a certain age that when your kids are hit this age, like, even if they're going off to college, like, even though I know you still want to help your kids, but not still be babying them, not still be spoiling them, you know, not paying for their stuff. You know, you should be already teaching them, like, hey, look for work and everything else. When do you think is that point that mom or dad needs to be like, you need to cut it off? Because I'm sure you see it. I know I have seen moms and dads still holding their 25, 28-year-old kid and cradling them. And I'm just like, man, what is going on here? So when do you think that should be, when the moms and dads needs to be like, you need to spread your wings and fly?
I think when that child is emotionally and financially ready. For some children, it may be 16. For some kids, and I don't mean like you just kick them out the house. Okay, you're 16, good luck to you. Not like that. But like you start giving them a little bit more responsibility. Like, okay, you've got a job now. You know, I don't need your money, but I expect you to start saving. That may be that conversation at 16. It may be at 18. Maybe if they're in college and they're still at home and you're working with them on budgeting and saving, or maybe you want them to pay part of what, I don't know, pay a bill, pay a light bill or whatever. I think it's going to be based upon the maturity level and the financial independence of the child. I think a lot of times, though, in a nutshell, when parents do that, it's guilt. It's guilt. So I'm going to baby you. And, you know, I grew up rough and I didn't have things that I needed or wanted when I was growing up. So I'm going to really smother you and make sure that you have it. Well, it's not about the child. Now you're crippling that child. It's about you and your guilt. So how about you go to therapy and get your healing and allow that baby to kind of spread their wings when they're ready. So I think it just depends on the emotional and financial readiness of that child. And hopefully both parents are able, whether the parents are married or not, or together or not, hopefully they're having the guidance of both mom and dad, because moms are nurturers, but will also smother you if we don't have a strong man to say, chill out.
All right.
Chill out. It's going to be okay. Take a breath. We need y'all. And I know today's society tries to pretend like we don't, but we really, really do. And same with the father. Sometimes you need to have a softer approach when it comes to certain conversations or certain instances. So I would just say it just depends. It's not really like a hard, fast age.
What about 26 though? Is that a hard no? Like,
I mean, come on, what you doing at 26? What happened?
I mean,
Where did I tell you, son?
Well, we all been in the military, right? And we all remember those people that were 22, 24 that just, they couldn't live. You're talking about, like, we've all seen it. I know we all have. That's like everybody. There's that one person who's like, why are your clothes wrinkled? I don't know how to iron, or I don't know how to do laundry. I don't like, I actually made money in tech school by doing people's laundries because people didn't know how to do it. And I was like, I grew up poor, so we know how to do it. But I mean, anyways, go ahead, Izzy. I just want to throw it in. I just want to see there's a hard stop.
There isn't, Mike. There isn't. They could be 50 and there still be mommy and daddy's little boy, little girl. It doesn't matter.
I mean, I would say, like, unless there's like a disability, a disability and you need to stay with us and we're like your caregivers, that's a whole nother situation. Right. But by the time you are done with college, that's like 22, 24-ish. And even if you didn't go to college and you're just working, still by that age, 22 to 24, that's like the sweet spot. If you don't know how to do laundry, make you some quick Kraft mac and cheese, some ramen noodles or something, you can't do that, then what that tells me is, as the parent, I've made my parenting about me. It's about my comfort. I'm almost purposely crippling you so that you stay with me, so that emotionally you're my crutch. Because at certain times, you should be able to be self-sufficient to a degree. If you 26 and you still can't do certain things, my goodness. Yeah. It was guilty parenting is what it was. It was about that parent and not the child. And that's unfortunate. It happens all the time. And then those people get married and they're like, I don't know what to do. Yeah.
Now, being that you say that, I know a lot of couples, sometimes there's a stepmom and there's a stepdad in the relationship. One couple is bringing in their biological kids, and either the husband now is a stepfather or the mom now is a stepmom. How do you, what's your outlook for the father or the mother relationship with those kids? Do you think that they should try to be a father, mother figure, or just a male, female figure in that household?
Ooh, Izzy. Blended families are very difficult to navigate. Very difficult to navigate because there's so many variables. So let's say I have children from a previous relationship, and then I marry Marcus, and he's not the biological father of my 3 children.
Right.
There has to be a lot of communication that happens between me and Marcus. And then before we decide we're going to be a family and get married and all of that, there needs to be really clear kind of guidelines as to how we're going to raise our family. As the mom, am I going to allow him to discipline my children? Am I going to allow him to adopt my children? Maybe their daddy is either deceased or he ain't no good and I don't want, and whatever happened between me and the dad.
Right.
So Marcus needs to come into the relationship with a very, very clear idea of what I'm going to allow him to do and not do. Same with me. I need to know that, like, I don't know if I want him having that sort of role in the life of my children. And if I say no, like, I don't ever want you to spank or whatever it is, I don't ever want you to be harsh with punishment. All discipline comes through me. If he's like, well, no thanks, then I have to be good with that. And I think that's the problem. A lot of times there are certain blended families that get together and they never really have those in-depth conversations. And then when it really comes down to discipline or a baby mama drama or a baby daddy drama and all that other stuff that kind of comes into play, they never talked about how we're going to navigate life. Maybe the in-laws, maybe my parents love my ex and can't stand Marcus. Those are real things that people don't discuss. I would say the number one issue is the lack of communication. There needs to almost be like a contract, like, are you, if I'm the man, am I allowed to discipline your children? Are you expecting me to adopt them? How much, financial backing, financially, what are you expecting me to do? So all of those things need to be discussed. And a lot of times they're not. And I think that's the key. Have the conversations and go through extensive premarital counseling. And then probably when you get married, you're probably going to need some marital counseling too, because blended families it's a very tricky dynamic. They can be successful, but it's a lot of work.
Wow. That's awesome. I'm glad we brought up that question and you gave that answer. Because like I said, I know a lot of friends and, families and stuff like that, they're in those situations, and I, there's been times where I would tell my homeboy, like, that son or daughter is going to come to the age where they're going to say, you're not my dad. It's going to happen. You know what I'm saying? Or my female friend, I'll be like, they're going to say, you're not my mom. So just be ready for that. I know the reaction is going to be like WTF, but I always try to forewarn them, like, just be ready for that, because they're going to get older and they're going to mature and it's just going to come out, because there's going to be a day that you're going to have to, like, sort of discipline them, not like physical, but be stern with them. And they're going to be like, you're not my dad,
Yep.
Which leads me to this question. In a relationship, if your husband says, hey, babe, I don't want you to go here, or I don't want you to go there, do you say, okay, because, babe, that's what you want? Or do you turn around and say, you're not my dad, I could do whatever I want to do?
I love that question.
Because I know women, or I know females do that. They'd be like, you're not my father. Are you my father? No, you're not. From what I know, I'm like 20 something, I'm 30 something, 40 something. You're not my father, Or they'll say, my father lives in New York. Or my father lives here. You're not my dad. So is there a problem with that? Like, do you see a difficulty when those responses are given, and vice versa? The husband could say, you're not my mom. Do you see some difficulties when that happens?
I would say, so I'll speak from where we are in our marriage now, and then I'll kind of talk to another side of it. So where I am in my marriage now, if I'm, telling Marcus, hey, I'm going to go, after work, I'm going to go to XYZ place with a few coworkers. And he's like, I don't know. I don't really feel comfortable with you going, or I really want to spend some time with you. I would really rather you not. Then, because of the amount of respect I have for my husband, okay, babe, no worries. I'll change plans. The reason is because for 21 plus years, we have consistently built trust.
Right.
A lot of times, if that is a situation and I don't have a strong foundation of trust built in my marriage, yeah, I need you to, yeah, I don't want you to go there. I don't care what you want me to do. My daddy, you are not, then that's where you get the you're not my father type deal.
Mm-hmm.
But if we've built a strong foundation of trust, then if you're saying it, and it might even be, okay, hey babe, I really don't want you to go to XYZ spot. Well, let's talk about it. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Let's have a conversation. What are your apprehensions? What are your thoughts? Well, this is what I've heard. Maybe he knows something about the area that's not safe.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe,
Right.
maybe he knows maybe he's a little suspicious of some of the coworkers, whatever it might be, have that conversation. But that comes from having consistent trust built over time.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, consistent from day one. And that's a lot of work. For those that are like newlyweds or those that don't have that strong foundation of trust, you can still have the conversation. Well, I really want to go, so I need you to tell me why.
Right.
Well, it's because I just don't want you to go. Well, no, talk about it. What are those feelings? What are those emotions? Let's have that conversation. Clear and concise communication. What is it? So I think it's a matter of having that conversation. And at the end of the day, people going people. They're going to do what they're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And some people are like, well, you ain't my daddy and I'm going and I'll deal with the consequences later. And that just may be the situation. But building that strong foundation of trust is important. And then even having the strong communication skills is also very vital. So,
because this leads to my last question, and I see it happen a lot, or I hear it happen a lot. The man, woman, if a man has female friends, if a woman has male friends. And I think you guys did an episode on this on Enough. So I believe I saw that episode.
We did.
But I want your perspective on that, because again, I hear it a lot. And majority of my friends are males. So a lot of my homeboys are like, yo, but she's just my friend. Like, I've been knowing her for this long, or whatever the case may be. We're just cool. We're not even like that, this and that. And the woman be like, who is that? Or vice versa. The man would be like, yo, who is he? Oh, that's my friend Izzy. I've been knowing him for so many years, this and that. But, sometimes for me, I just see it like, man, they're just jealous people. But what is your outlook on that, on a man having female friends and a woman having male friends if they're in a relationship?
I think that's something that we actually see a lot. I think that the key to this is intimacy. That's the problem. Emotional intimacy. So let's say I went to college with my friend Chris. I'm just throwing the name out there. Me and Chris have known each other since college. We've known each other for years, and I'm really, really close to him. He's like a brother. He's not my biological brother, but he's
right.
And Chris knows information about me that my potential husband, fiance, Marcus doesn't know yet. So there's a level of emotional intimacy that I have with Chris that I don't have with Marcus that I'm trying to build. So that can definitely be a barrier. So having opposite gendered, opposite sex friends can be very tricky because there's a level of emotional intimacy that may exist, and that's a threat to the new relationship. So if you are willing to get into the relationship, if I'm trying to build something with Marcus and I'm saying that his relationship with me is the priority, then I even need to be willing to sacrifice. Sorry, Chris, you're my boy and all, but I'm trying to build this with Marcus now.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people aren't willing to do that because they've got that history and that connection. Sometimes they're able to transition well. And now Chris is like a brother to Marcus. We've brought him into the relationship collectively. If you're able to integrate that friendship into the relationship and it can sustain, cool. But a lot of people can't do that.
Yeah.
Because Chris is my friend. And he knows stuff about me. And then it get real messy when Chris didn't see my birthmarks. It get real messy again. And that's the dynamic. Like, me and Chris back in the day, we dated and dated. But he's my brother though. No.
Yeah.
Now you're real messy.
Because Izzy's been a lot of brothers to a lot of homegirls. So a lot of boyfriends or husbands be looking at me like, yo, who's this guy? But I just want you to know that I already text Marcus, letting him know, yo, some guy named Chris. She knows. She mentioned him. I know she says it's an imaginary person, but Marcus, and there's a Chris. Be on the lookout.
Like that?
No, but Chauntel, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I'm so grateful that you came on, especially to share, your wisdom now about relationships. I'm glad that you provided us, with your honesty. Continue with the teaching. It's doing great work. I know it's very discouraging, which stinks that people are looking at that profession and not giving what it's really worth. But I, just from listening you talk about and everything else, just hearing your passion and your love to make sure that these kids are developed better into the future and everything else. So, flowers to you. And just being a veteran and, and just coming out from the military, dealing with it during the time in the military, coming out and dealing with it, motherhood and everything else into the civilian workforce. Again, I give you your flowers, man. It's incredible. Marcus is a lucky guy. I know your family has to be beyond to know that they have a mom, a woman, somebody with your mindset and everything else, your strength to be there for them all the time. So thank you for coming on. There's really no words to describe it, but I really am glad that you came on and I really enjoyed it. It's awesome. Thanks,
Izzy. I appreciate that.
Yeah. And like, I just like to say, like, I'm so happy that y'all came on. Like, I'm glad I got to meet you and your husband. It's really like, it's that weird, like you said, like the connection, right? Like, hey man, cool. Like, let's help each other. Like, why? Like, I don't know, why not? Like, is that why not question? I really, what I took from a lot of the conversation is we look at people and we think, hey, you're just this. But the more we talk to you, the more the conversation evolves. You start finding out like, okay, you're an educator, but that's one part of your day, right? You're an author. Like that's another part of your day that like you might go there. Sometimes you have to sell yourself. Sometimes you're gonna have to do that. And then you have a coaching, right? So you got to do that stuff. You have a program now for that side. And then also you have a YouTube. Like I think when people think about what they want to do, or sometimes it is something like what you're having to do where you're going to different areas, but it's one collective thing, right? You're not doing something, you're not teaching a class on basket weaving, or you're not saying hey, I really want, like, no, it's all the same thing. Because even though when you're on YouTube, you're still coaching, you're still teaching, which is what you do in your day-to-day life. And I think that's why we've seen so much of your channel grow so fast and those type of things, is because, I just want people to understand you might be doing a lot, but it's a lot in one area. Like you're not going out there and becoming this all person and doing this now. You have 5 different YouTube channels on this thing. You have one area that happens. You said people be like, man, like you're, you talk to people, you're like, you're into pumpkins, you're into knitting. You're like, they do that stuff, man. It's like, wow. Like, but like, that's me though. That's kind of like, that's my mentality sometimes. But what I'm saying is like for yours, like you're in one area and you're honing your skills every day. And then y'all added a new facet to that, which was the YouTube portion, the social media portion, where that's now a new way to educate. Because man, like how, like, and I know I've talked to Marcus and we're talking about, hey, this is what we're seeing on our channel. He goes, it doesn't work for us on this one because we do this one. And you're sitting there saying like, you have to understand how your message come across and how's it, is it, and digested and those type of things. And that's something that you're learning all the time. And so I just want people to understand that you might seem like you're doing a lot of different things, but it's a lot of different things for one area. And that's why you're honing your skills day in day. And they start seeing like, hey, your YouTube show, why is it growing? They've only been doing it. Well, this is where she's at. Like she's doing this all the time. There's nothing that's really, you're not switching. You're not putting a political podcast on right now. And then you're going to this, you're staying in this area, which I love. And that's why I love what y'all are doing on YouTube. I think it's great. And again, I see nothing but just, man, how people can digest it. Because now y'all doing reaction videos, y'all have that. And sometimes I saw the other day with the Will Smith, and I was like, what? And so like, I see some of the clip, I'm like, what is going on here? I need to like kind of look at some of these things, because but that's another skill that you have, that you're having to, how do I grab your attention by what on my topic? Because I see some of y'all's topics, right? I'm like, well, what is our take, right? Because kind of curious. And I will say, if you're a guy and your wife has that one friend that might be like that weird person, or like is always going through guys and doing that stuff, they have an episode that I would highly suggest you forward it to them, be like, hey, this might be your friend. And then you and your wife have a conversation. You're like, hey, you know what I mean? Like, let's talk about it. Let's communicate so we can like talk. We can, those things. And again, the last thing what I'll say is what I took from a lot of things that you said was communication, right? And I think that's what people don't understand about marriage, man. It's talking. If you're a newlywed and guys, I don't want you to go, right? So this woman's like, why? And if you're fully newly married, you dive deep and you're like, I'm insecure, right? But you've been married 10, 15 years, you know what I mean? And what I'll say about when you're talking about the husband having a friend and stuff like that, if I have a female friend, yes, but it's nothing like the conversations I have with my wife. We will not have those conversations about that stuff. If there's another woman present, if there's a husband, I talk to the husband. I'm in real estate. So like sometimes I talk to the wife and I sit there and tell her, I was like, hey, do you have a husband? Yes. Hey, let's put each other in a group chat. Why? I want to be respectful of him. Like, we got to keep, because you never know in those things. And that's what I love about what your channel is talking about. You're having these conversations that as people, like, again, if you're a step parent, what does that look like? And if you're sitting there saying, well, okay, like, you know what I mean? These are the things. So I'm glad you talked on multiple things. And I love showing that the female veteran is more than a female veteran, right? She can become anything she wants to be. And you have the drive, you have the ambition, you have the mindset, you have everything. So again, glad you came on. Love showing that we have a tendency to think that only men served in the military. And then we say, okay, well, we know we have women veterans, but what are their opinions? Yeah. And then we find out they have a very smart intellect and they're going that. They could be businesswomen too, as well. They can be authors. And so love that you're on here. Love that you're showing everybody that here's a ceiling and here's where I'm at, which is above that. So thank you.
Well, thank you. This was a blast. You guys are awesome. Like I said, y'all are like brothers. Love how fast y'all are growing too. So kudos to your channel and your podcast, because it is growing and it's growing really, really fast. So keep doing what y'all doing. I love the authenticity. Y'all are just y'all. And it's like just almost like having dinner with just two brothers. Like, okay, what are we talking about today? We talk strip club. What are we talking about? Like whatever it is, y'all bring it up. Like, but it's real conversations, and I love it. So keep doing what y'all are doing over here. This is great work.
So ladies and gentlemen,
for veterans, that's awesome.
Thanks, appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, you could get him on Meet the Simmons YouTube channel. It's called Enough Said. You could get him on Instagram, Meet the Simmons. Also on Facebook, Meet the Simmons, and everything else. Again, Chauntel, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sirs. And thank you for serving our country as well.
Likewise.